love Chief Jolly. So
just before you start, I am now going to record the meeting. I should have started before introductions, but if you don't want to be on this public document, go ahead and turn off your camera and don't say anything. But I hope you'll participate. Okay, it's all yours.
So yeah, well, I appreciated Joe for having me on here. This is my first time jumping on this call, and I appreciate the invite yesterday for coming to join you all. There's a lot of big names in here. I appreciate Aubrey being on also in her car too, so I don't feel so bad doing mine from my vehicle. So Chief, jump in anytime. I'd welcome any addition to what I have to say. But my initial thought when I was invited to this meeting, kind of reading through what everybody's purpose was or angle was on the desire to help the young, the youth in this community, my first initial thought was we have had an extended time of children or youth being at home due to COVID, the pandemic, the summer, whatever it may be. They've been at home for quite some time, and because of that, we're now only a couple months into the school year, where fortunately we've got all the kids back into the school and some sort of regular setting, which has been great. You see that through the masks, you can even see the happiness that the kids have just by getting into the walls of the schools. So that's great. But we knew as well, this is something that I've just heard out there, and I've thought myself, is that we knew that there might be some issues with some of the children coming back or the students coming back into the schools after such an extended time away from structure. Now, not every kid or not every student has the structure at home that they might get in the classroom or in a school setting. And so I think that's rearing its head as we are all involved in this just a bit. So as I've gotten into the schools, and as I've seen, we've run across now, I think you mentioned at the beginning, Joe, we've unfortunately had to deal with two 16-year-old suicides in the last 2 months. I'm sorry, not suicides, deaths. I saw your head go, and I thank you for that, because I said that wrong. It was not suicides. They were their deaths by overdose. And what I haven't seen out there though is, and that's something I would like to talk about, is trying to get the information out there on to parents, to leaders, to teachers, on what to look for when it comes to a student that might be using or even possibly selling these type of pills. From what I understand, they were a fentanyl pill style, and we all know that that could be a deadly substance for anybody, much less a child. And so so with that being said, that was a concern that just came up, and I would really love to be a part of any sort of community outreach when it comes to having parents brought in, offering a free class to parents on what to look for, signs, how to look through your own child's phone, looking for these type of conversations and all that. That's something that I would love to see. Also, and I forget who is over the vape and the marijuana. I'm not sure who does that at the high school, but we see it every day. In fact, like I said at the beginning of this, I got a text from one of the security at the high school that just mentioned that they just came across somebody with marijuana. And so it is common, but in a state where marijuana is legal, you just have to be over 21 to take part in it. It's accessible to most kids. It's almost like alcohol. It's going to be accessible to them. So it's hard to be so hard on it when it's accepted in their own home, and then we have to say, well, it's illegal substance and we can't have it in the schools. So A lot of that is trying to talk to parents on the appropriate avenue for their child, because a lot of parents do allow that substance to be used, whether it be through vape or even smoking. So once again, we can even throw that into the meeting with parents too on how to have your child or talk to your child or look for the signs of your child using some sort of substance or vape. When we come across vapes, most times out of not, the vape is a dab style vape where it's actually has marijuana included, infused in it. So unfortunately, there's a lot of kids out there that do that. So we do look for it. The security team at the Monroe High School is great. They're very good with the children up there and the students up there on finding it, ascertaining where the actual vape actually is. Sometimes they hear about it, but they're able to actually find it and grab it. So with that, I know we're only a few months into the year. I know that the mental health team is the counselors there are going full bore. I try to help out as often as they need me or come over and ask for assistance. But I love to just stay involved. So once again, I appreciate you throwing me on this call.
Thank you, Craig. Any questions for Craig? This is your time. All right. Oh, looks like you might be off the hook. Oh, Mary, do you have a question?
I do have a question. I am curious to know, are you getting any sense from students? Is there any chatter about kids who are selling or actively using the pills that you were talking about on campus? I know that the young people that lost their lives to these drugs were not currently students, but I suspect that the impact is currently present at the high school.
So
We
question.
haven't had a good handle on what the current situation is, other than awareness that the 2 young people died.
Right. Good question, Mary. Thanks for bringing that up. So I have not seen any evidence of any other students selling those pills on campus. If I did, I would fully jump into that investigation. I do know that the investigation of how the other children, the 2 that died, and how they were able to obtain those pills, I know that that's currently under investigation. I'm not a part of that, but I do know that anytime that a 16-year-old dies from substance, there's going to be an investigation of why, how, where did we miss it, where did parents miss it, and how can we do better moving forward. So good question. I haven't had any evidence in the high school of any of our students selling them though.
But I suspect it would be naive to think that it's not a present possibility.
Right. I would imagine just with that many students in the school that there might be any. And we got to understand that back in our day when we were in school, that there was no Snapchat or cell phones or ways of communicating. We actually had to like go knock on doors and ask friends if they can come out and play. If you remember all that. But with that, I think that the students do get the word out there pretty quick on these 2 that have passed, and if that doesn't scare them into kind of making better choices or better decisions on using or not using that substance, then yeah, I think it's out there. I would have to say that
We lost you, Craig. Your audio is gone. Yeah, okay. Looks like, Craig, you're off the hook, but that was a great law enforcement report. Thanks for letting us see what's on the ground. No, can't hear you. Please. Oh, okay. That's okay. That's okay. Because actually, Craig, you are free. Thank you so much. I want to hand this off to Juliet. Juliet, on very short notice, has put together a presentation on Delta-8 THC, which is an emerging issue, and there are a lot of regulatory issues around it, as in there is no regulation around it.
Thank you.
Julia, I'm going to make you a co-host so that you can share your screen if you have slides. Where are you? There we go. Okay, it's all yours.
Okay. Wonderful. Okay, so I will pull up my slides. Haven't done this in a while on Zoom, so bear with me for a second. I want to share this. And we want to start the slideshow. Let's see. Okay, is that working? Is everyone seeing some slides? Perfect. Oh, Joe, you're muted now.
Sorry, we can see your screen, Juliet. I'm just having a hard time hearing you.
Oh. Is it any better if I just get really close to my laptop? Okay. I don't know where the microphone is, but I think I occasionally cover it up on accident. So I have some slides I put together. This is my first time doing a presentation on Delta-8. I've been a little out of the loop for a while, so it was actually fun to get to do this. I've attended a number of trainings, or a few trainings at least lately, on this topic. So I was excited to get asked to share a little bit more info. I am, just for distraction purposes, not going to have your little thumbnails open, but if anyone has a question while I'm talking, feel free to just like blurt something in, and I will pause. There should also be a little question time at the end, I hope. But otherwise, we will dive right in. I'm going to talk a little bit about cannabis, marijuana, and hemp, just to kind of do a little stage setting for why Delta-8 THC is this new compound of concern, and what the issues are around it. But I will try to go through the other stuff quickly, but I think it's always nice to have a refresher. So first thing here, what we're mainly talking about is the cannabis plant. I'm sure you are all very familiar with it in some form or another, have probably seen pictures at least somewhere. It has a very long history of being cultivated, thousands of years. There are over 100 naturally occurring cannabinoids in the plant as it grows. The two most well-known ones are THC, which is tetrahydrocannabinol, and CBD. So, you know, in our market in Washington State and in the products that are used, those are the two we hear the most about. And then in the past couple of years, I think the conversation around hemp has really grown, and we hear a lot more about hemp in addition to marijuana at this point. So when we are talking about marijuana and hemp, it's important to know that they are both the same plant. So they're not different strains of the cannabis plant or anything. They are both cannabis plant. Biologically, or, you know, scientifically speaking, they are classified the same way. The only difference is it's really a legal difference between marijuana and hemp. And I will explain a little bit more about what that looks like. So marijuana is the cannabis plant cultivated as a drug or as an intoxicating substance. So it's generally, marijuana is generally just the dried flower, sometimes leaves and stems as well, but generally the dried flower of the plant. And marijuana is anything that can, or any plant that contains greater than 0.3% by dry weight of delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol. And delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol is the compound of the cannabinoid that we typically refer to as THC. So in the discourse up until, you know, the year 2020, or at least 2021, When we talk about THC, we're talking about delta 9 THC. And this is a naturally occurring cannabinoid in the plant. It is what interacts with the brain. It produces the high feeling that people get when they use marijuana, as well as some of the other psychoactive impacts that they might experience. And just because I like to yell about this whenever I can, the amount of THC that is currently in the plants that are grown today in Washington state, but also across the country, and I assume beyond, has drastically increased over the past decades. So in the past 50 years, the plants that have grown have been cultivated to be more potent. So they've selected the plants that have more THC and delta 9 THC and replicate those. So the plant itself that's grown today is about 10 times more potent than what was grown in maybe the 70s. And then the ways that it is extracted and the plant is processed lead to products that are incredibly potent, up to 90, 95% THC. So much different than a lot of what we think about, at least culturally, from the 70s, that era, as cannabis or marijuana as weed. I believe it was a researcher from UW, but I heard him talk about this a while ago, and he said something to the effect of, there's a reason they called it grass back then, because it basically was, especially compared to what is grown now. So then, just legally speaking, as a refresher, in 2012, Washington state voters approved Initiative 502, which legalized adult marijuana use. And along with that, it allowed for the creation of a legal retail market, and those retail stores were allowed to open in 2014. Federally, marijuana remains a Schedule I controlled substance, which means it is of highest concern. They consider it to have the most potential for harm. But in Washington state, at least, marijuana is we have a legal retail market for marijuana, as do at this point many other states across the United States. The ways marijuana is consumed, it is smoked or vaped, and that is generally just the dried plant material. It is vaporized in vape pens, dabs, dab pens. There's a couple examples of those in the little pictures to the side. One is a full pen, and then one is just a cartridge of vape oil, basically. It is, especially with this legal retail market, the edible market has expanded exponentially. So, more than just cookies and brownies now, there are candies, there's drinks, there's pasta sauces. There are a lot of products out there that are sold in these stores. And additionally, there are, and there's a few, obviously, examples of that right there, of products that are sold. These are all from Washington state. And then there are also topical products. Mainly those are CBD products, not intended to have any kind of psychoactive impacts, but more kind of for wellness or other uses. And topically, THC cannot be absorbed through your skin, so your body's only able to absorb the CBD that way. And the amounts of THC and CBD in the products that are sold in Washington state can really vary. The plant material itself is limited to, what is grown in the plant, but concentrates and the edibles that are made from concentrates can have vastly different and much higher amounts of THC and CBD in them. And then the two little images I have down here are just the icons that the Liquor and Cannabis Board requires to be on the packaging for all products. So that's a little thing that, is supposed to indicate it's for adult use only. And then all packages have to have the Not for Kids logo with the Washington Poison Center number. So hemp is a little different in that it is any part of the cannabis plant that has less than 0.3% delta 9 THC by weight. So basically, the way they distinguish between marijuana and hemp, they are both the cannabis plant, but it's just by weighing or measuring the amount of delta 9 THC that is in the plant. Many parts of the cannabis plant are used in hemp and hemp-derived products. You can see a little image over there. The flower, the stalk, the roots, the seeds. There's things they extract from the seeds. Oops, not ready to do that. So industrial hemp is grown, is a very sustainable crop. It is grown for paper, clothing, textiles, animal feed, plastics, food products, hemp milk, hemp seed. There's lots of those products out there, especially now, because in 2018, the United States passed the Farm Bill, which basically legalized hemp. So it removed it from the controlled substance list. So hemp, or parts of the cannabis plant that have less than 0.3% of Delta-9 THC, are no longer considered to be controlled substances. They can be produced and they can be processed. They can be sold across state lines. And this created a legal way, in addition to all the industrial uses of hemp and how it is grown agriculturally, a legal source for CBD products. So if you were paying attention anytime starting about 2019, which I know feels like a very long time ago now with all that has gone on, and you were in stores at that point, I noticed, and I think a lot of others noticed, a sudden proliferation of a lot of CBD products. I remember standing in line at DSW buying like shoes and looking over, and there was a whole CBD product display at DSW. So that market has really expanded since that bill was passed. And that is kind of how we get into the situation we are in today with Delta-8 THC and some other isomers of concern. So Delta-8 THC.
Juliet, this is Joe.
Yes.
I'm going to interrupt your momentum. Is there a purchase limit, an age limit on purchasing CBD products?
Oh, great question. I will talk a little bit more about that, but no, there is no age limit or restriction around CBD products.
Because it's not psychoactive.
Because it is not psychoactive. So if you were to go into, so there are CBD products that you can purchase in like a state controlled marijuana retail store. And because they could have more than 0.3% THC by weight in those products, those potentially could be psychoactive, but the way they are sold outside of those stores in just the regular CBD retail market now, there is no age restriction because in theory they should not be psychoactive. However, they also don't have to like do a lot of testing of their products. So they also sometimes contain barely any CBD in them, which I don't have a slide about that, but I'd love to talk more about that another time. But great question, and please feel free to interrupt me again if you would like to. So Delta-8 THC is an isomer of Delta-9 THC, which basically means it is a chemically similar but not identical compound. It differs from Delta-9 THC by one carbon bond. So one bond is like shifted over. I don't have an image here, but if you Google, you will see clearly that they are just about identical, but they're technically different. Delta-8 THC is naturally present in the cannabis plant. It is just present in very small quantities. And therefore it is being extracted primarily from CBD using solvents and acids. So, chemicals that are used to extract these very small quantities from CBD to get more of it to be able to use that in products. That is primarily happening through hemp-derived CBD, but it is also possible to do it through marijuana-derived CBD or marijuana as well. And then it is a psychoactive compound. The WHO at this point estimates it is about 50 to 75% as psychoactive as Delta-9 THC. So perhaps less psychoactive, but by no means is it not a psychoactive compound. And then hemp products are consumed pretty much identically to the way that marijuana products are. When the CBD market really started taking off in the past few years, there have been ways to smoke it, to vape it, to put it in edibles, there are topicals. And then there are many legal hemp-derived CBD products out there right now. And I say legal because technically they're not violating any federal or state laws by being sold. There are a few restrictions. CBD products can't make any health claims. They can't claim to be, dietary supplements. They can't act or present themselves like they are a food or a drug. The FDA has some regulatory authority over products that come to their attention that fall into that category. But other than that, there is a pretty bit of a wild, wild west of legal hemp-derived CBD products out there. They are sold online, they're sold in hemp stores, and they're also sold in marijuana retail stores in states that have legalized marijuana retail. And then Delta 8 THC, we are seeing it marketed as safer, as less impacting, as the high without the negative side effects. They're making a lot of claims about it that are really not based on anything scientific. And then on this slide, I have a few examples of just from a quick Google search I did today of what some of these products look like. So at the top, there's a little vape cartridge. So that is a hemp-derived, CBD-derived Delta 8 cartridge. It looks very similar to a cartridge you would buy in a marijuana retail store in Washington State. And then it, purportedly tells you that it is 1 milliliter and that it has 1,000 milligrams of Delta 8 in it. That's what it seems to indicate. But, not very child resistant looking packaging there or anything. There are a lot of gummy products out there that have Delta 8 in them. That also seem to have some kind of labeling about how strong they are, but again, no one is double checking that. And then this is just an example of a brand that has their own. They have gummies, they have rolled joints, they have extracts, they have flour, and so anything that's being sold. Any Delta 8 products that are being sold as a smokable product, because Delta 8 is found in such small quantities in the plant naturally, is actually the Delta 8 being extracted generally from CBD from hemp and then sprayed on or chemically applied to a dried plant or dried flower that is then smoked like marijuana flower, but obviously has been altered quite a bit. So this is Joe, I did not start a timer, so if I'm taking too long, also feel free to hurry me up. This is a nice little side-by-side comparison from a fact sheet that the Washington Healthy Youth Coalition put together in May about emerging concerns around Delta 8 and other THC isomers. I don't have an active link to this embedded anywhere, but I can certainly, Joe, if you don't have it, I can share it with you after and you can pass it along to folks if they're interested. So we're going to start on the marijuana side. As I mentioned, marijuana is anything that is 0.3% Delta 9 THC or higher. So the definition is only specifically refers to Delta 9 THC. In Washington State, that is true. And for many other states as well, their definitions only include Delta 9. So not THC, not all isomers of THC, just Delta 9. And for marijuana, processors, growers, and retailers are all licensed and regulated by the Liquor and Cannabis Board. Products can only be sold to consumers who are 21 or older. There are potency limits based on the type of the product. So for edibles, there is a 10 milligrams of THC serving limit, and there can only be 10 servings in a package. So 100 milligrams total of THC per package. The products from seed to sale are tracked. They are they know what pesticides are used. They test potency. They test for mycotoxins, microbials, solvents. Things are quite regulated, and there's a pretty good tracking system in place for the whole spectrum of growth to sale. There are rules around how things have to be labeled. They have to have that Washington Poison Center icon. They have to have that, or Poison Center number. They have to have the 21 plus icon. And there are, sometimes packaging is not approved by the LCB, or producers have to go back and redo it because maybe it appeals to youth too much. It's taxed at 37%, and retail outlets must be at least 1,000 feet from elementary and middle schools, as well as other youth serving organizations. So you can't have a retail outlet set up right next to your kid's middle school. And then in Washington State, marijuana is regulated by the Liquor and Cannabis Board, and the Department of Health regulates medical marijuana specifically. And federally, it is still regulated by the Drug Enforcement Administration, where it is still a completely illegal substance. Hemp, on the other hand, and its derivatives, which include CBD, that very small percentage of Delta-9 THC, and then Delta-8 THC and other THC isomers. There is a Delta-10 isomer, and there are a number of others as well, which I am not as familiar with, but they are growing. There's a lot of them out there. There is no licensing process for processors or for sellers. There's no age restriction to purchase these products. Online, I was looking at Delta-8 products earlier, and there's just a thing where you have to click to say you're over 21. But that is essentially nothing. There are no limits on potency or container size. There is really limited testing, enforceability around how these are produced and processed and packaged, no tracking, oversight, etc. No system for checking for impurities or dangerous chemicals being used in the process. Very minimal regulations around how products are labeled. They are not taxed. They can be sold anywhere. And then in Washington State, hemp production is regulated by the State Department of Agriculture, and federally it is regulated by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And then anything that is along the lines of a food product or a drug is regulated by the Food and Drug Administration. So I'm going to do a little, what do we know? What are our questions and how are things looking? And then I will wrap up. So we do know that preventing youth substance use is incredibly important. This applies to any psychoactive or intoxicating substance. So marijuana, Delta-9 THC, but anything else that would impact a brain similarly. And because brains continue to develop until about the age of 25, any substance that interacts with the brain can affect youth very differently than it may affect adults. And that underage use of substances, including underage use of marijuana, can have both short and long-term impacts. So we know there are reasons to be concerned and to be paying attention. Specifically, concerns at this point are around how the impacts of Delta-8 THC may differ from Delta-9. And I would say that's true for Delta-10, any of these other new isomers. All of the information we have from the research community at this point is based on the psychoactive impacts of Delta-9 THC. So, we really don't have anything to base our knowledge base around the impacts of Delta-8 THC on at this point, other than things we can surmise. We don't know what chemicals are being used to extract Delta-8. We don't know how the hemp itself is being grown, what pesticides may be used in that process. We have seen, and poison centers across the country have seen reports, increasing reports of accidental ingestion, both from adults who thought they were purchasing and using a non-psychoactive CBD product that actually had CBD-derived Delta-8 in it, and seeing some adverse effects there from unintentionally ingesting that product when they thought they were just ingesting CBD. And then also accidental ingestion by children and youth, which was a concern initially when we had a lot of edible products being sold in Washington State's marijuana retail market, because so many of the products sold looked similar to a gummy bear or a gummy worm or a goldfish cracker. In our state regulated marijuana market at this point, those products can't be sold because it is so likely that there could be accidental ingestion, and that is why there's extra safety measures that are supposed to be in place. However, for this new market of Delta-8 THC products, many of them are produced to look just like those same candies or things that youth are familiar with and kids are familiar with and would not expect to have psychoactive impacts. And then again, the lack of a regulatory system is a real concern, around advertising, around sale to youth, around those, issues of what's being used to produce them. Right before COVID, we had the EVALI, vaping associated lung injury was a huge concern. It impacted a lot of people, and that was partly due to chemicals being used in vaping devices. And here we are again with lots of new products being sold intended to be vaporized and inhaled with no system to monitor what is going into those products. And then finally, this is just kind of Delta 8 specifically as part of a growing trend in unregulated cannabis-derived psychoactive substances that are being produced and sold across the United States. So clearly some action needs to be taken. So the FDA is looking at this issue. They're a federal agency. They're not the most nimble. They don't move terribly quickly, but they are working on this. And then Washington State's Liquor and Cannabis Board is working within the scope of their authority to address products that are currently at least sold in the legal retail market. So that is where they currently have authority. And then Delta 8 THC, this was kind of coming out right as legislative session was ending this past year. So they didn't have a chance to really get anything in terms of bills that could really have an impact, but I know that is a priority coming into this legislative session, is looking at ways that legislation could be passed to expand their authority around what they can regulate, and also how cannabis, marijuana, THC products are defined, because right now they can only regulate Delta 9 THC. So a little wiggle room there would probably help them. And then education and information is being shared in communities like this. The Washington State Healthy Youth Coalition did that really great fact sheet, which I think has been pretty broadly shared at this point, and is an excellent piece of information. And then national organizations and federal agencies are also, working to get information about this, to collect the information themselves and then to share it out. So I have a few resources here. Joe, I can send you my slides and then you can send them out with folks if you're interested, or I can just at least put these links in an email. But the CDC did a health alert about Delta 8 THC that has a lot of good information about it. The FDA has 5 things to know about Delta 8 THC. And then there are a lot of other resources online at this point, from state poison centers and other prevention related organizations. And then I just have a few other websites up here that I like to share just around prevention generally. That is the end of my slides. If we have time for questions, I'm happy to do my best to answer questions. And if there are things I don't have the answer to, I am happy to follow up offline.
Julia, this is Joe. Are you aware if hemp or Delta 8 THC products are subject to any state preemption laws? Do local communities have the opportunity to regulate around this?
I believe they do. As far as I know, there is no state preemption around the sale of hemp-derived products.
So if we have the will of our city council to protect, well, kids you could be 5 years old and buy this, it looks like. Or, it sounds like with no distance provisions, it could be sold in the convenience store right across from Park Place Middle School where kids hang out.
Yes.
So it seems like there's risk and maybe opportunity because it's so unregulated to regulate ourselves. Okay, I'll take a step back.
I will double check on that and I will confirm, but that's an excellent question.
Thank you. Any concerns or questions? Is this an issue the coalition should look deeper into? I see Kathy Bernhardt shaking her head, Chris Gray. Yep, Mary Myers. Okay. And then, this might be something I bring to our executive team here in Monroe. I don't believe we have any policy that addresses Delta 8 THC, and I don't know what, it sounds like the Wild Wild West. So that's why I invited you.
Well, thank you. It was I think this is an important step of this work, since it is so new and it's early, is to, get communities like you all, like this coalition, informed and involved, since you have such great influence.
Thank you. So I'm going to do a really quick business update just so we can get to you guys. Juliet, that presentation exceeded my expectations by far. Thank you so much. So business updates, I wanted you to know that Salem Woods Elementary School is fully trained in the PACS Good Behavior game. 50 out of 51 staff members, everybody from custodians to principals, have been trained in the program, and they are starting to implement now. Frank Wagner Elementary is implementing the PAC, or will be training in the PACS Good Behavior game starting on Monday, and they'll have 2 weeks there before they're ready to start implementing. If you don't know, PACS is the most powerful evidence-based strategy in the world, according to the research, and the research is 40 years old and growing, but it reduces special education needs, it reduces substance abuse initiation, it reduces development of mental health disorders and conduct disorders, it reduces suicide, it increases high school graduation and college admission. It is powerful. And so we will have 3 of 5 elementary schools implementing this powerful strategy because of the coalition. Jennifer Swan, who was on earlier, has started to implement the Signs of Suicide program. This is a coalition-funded program that is, district adopted curriculum. We have 2 counselors in training this week to implement the CAST coping and support training program. That leaves us with only 2 out of 14 counselors who will be untrained. Both of them are at Park Place Middle School, and they will be trained in December. So the coalition has funded their training, and we'll be starting to run groups after Signs of Suicide. So for kids who aren't well served by the one-size-fits-all approach, we have CAST to come in and keep kids safe, build skills and coping strategies. We have Jennifer Swan trained in youth mental health first aid. Her priority will be able to bring this training to community members and teachers when we're all done with Signs of Suicide, which is going to consume her through the winter, through December. So that's on the docket, but the training is complete. We are running the Under the Influence of You advertising campaign in the Galaxy Theater and on Spotify. I will be training elementary school counselors and other interested folks in the Check and Connect program that was developed by University of Minnesota. My hope is to have a training contract signed by the end of the month, so we're moving there. Botvin's Life Skills Training Program will start being implemented next week in 6th through 8th grade at both Hidden River and Park Place Middle School. So we're on our way. We are on our way. We have licensed Prevention Plus Wellness, the sport single session prevention program that's shown to reduce marijuana and other substances for all grade levels. My goal is to have counselors trained. What my goal here is so that I can be trained as a training of trainers, and then we can just bring counselors up to speed, student support advocates up to speed, and other interested parties. This is a program we could also equip our community partners, Take the Next Step, and others to implement as well. Even youth counselors youth pastors or others who are working with youth. So we can unleash access to this strategy. We purchased an unlimited license, so we can do whatever we want with this program, reproduce all of the materials, train as many people as we want over the next 3 years. So it's just a matter of time, and we're getting there. Take the Next Step is waiting on me for their next Parenting Wisely contract. Take the Next Step will be providing Parenting Wisely for us this year. We have not broached the topic about whether or not to show a film in the Galaxy Theater, and so that will be coming up. I just want to let you know that that's been a priority for years. We're about to launch our Spanish language social norms marketing campaign that's designed to improve access to mental health supports, and especially the free supports that the coalition has been able to put in place in the school district. As you know, or if you're new and may not know, Spanish-speaking moms identified their husbands and uncles and fathers as the primary barrier to accessing mental health services, even when pro bono services have been set up with some of our great providers on this call and intermediaries on this call, facilitators. As soon as dads have learned about it, families have been not permitted to engage. So we have a group of students who are not able to access Jennifer Swan and Matt Hill and Stephanie and others. Once parents learn about it, once fathers learn about it, it's done. And this campaign was designed by Spanish-speaking fathers in our community to break down barriers for access. So that will be launched soon. And then we're fully on track. So that's our brief business update. I want to turn this over to you so that we can see what's going on in your neck of the woods. And so rather than doing a round robin call on you, I'm wondering, I want to acknowledge that Deborah Knight from City of Monroe has joined us. Deborah, I anticipate I'm going to be tapping into you on this Delta 8 THC issue. So you've been warned.
Well, the timing's good, Joe, because I was talking to the mayor a couple of weeks ago just about bringing you back and doing an update on just the success that you've been having with the coalition and the work that you're currently doing, and marijuana in general. We've had a couple of private companies that have reached out to the city about opening a marijuana store in town, and I just wanted to give council a reminder about the impact of doing that to the community.
Yep. Yeah, and we'll have new data soon. Deborah, do you have any other updates from the city? I know you just completed your community needs assessment, and I asked Rachel to be our presenter next month.
Oh, good. Yep, that was the only other thing I was going to mention, that if there is anybody else on this call that wanted Rachel or I to come out and give an update to your organization about the outcomes of the Sky Valley needs assessment. We looked at, what are the needs, the barriers, and the gaps in the human services social safety net. So we have some really great data to share with all of you. If you're looking to apply for grants, you might want to take a look at some of the deeper dive information that we have, because I think it might be able to support your requests, again, with data, with community outreach. All of that information is available on the city's website. So actually, right now that I'm thinking about it, I'll just put that in the chat. And so if people want to go out and look at that web page with all the background information, you can see it there for yourselves. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Cam, any updates from the ESD? I said I wasn't going to call on people. I apparently lied. Cam, any
that's fine. I don't know that I have any updates to share. Yeah, I do know we just, I was looking today at, there's a Washington Post article that came out that said the FDA permits e-cig or authorizes e-cigarette use, saying that its benefit to smokers outweighs its risk to youth. So that's probably something we should be aware of, that the FDA came out to say. So there's a firewall on the article, so I can't look at it, but yeah, that's happening.
That's my problem. I can never access materials necessary to my work.
And I'm aware that it's $2 a month. Do I want to pay for that? No. So, yeah, but I figured that's something everyone should probably do.
I have a subscription to it. I can send you that article.
Thanks, please do.
I'll send it to Joe, and then he can send it on.
Perfect. Thank you.
Chris, what's happening at Housing Hope? What's happening in your world?
Well, oops, am I still okay? Right now I'm pounding everybody I can, because Tomorrow's Hope is now changed, and it's now been divided, and part of it is under HopeWorks, which is our social enterprise part of the organization. So that will include training some of our residents and others in working as teachers, not certified teachers, but preschool teachers, doing childcare, that kind of thing. So we can provide those internships. The other thing that's important for you guys is that they want to look for expanding Tomorrow's Hope, but into another facility. And East County, I think, is rising to the top of that list because there's so many of us that have been working with all of you in terms of providing something like that in East County. On a meeting that Joe and I were on Monday, I am now in contact with Tina with Miracles and Memories, and she wants to get together and look at what we could do as a partnership with Tomorrow's Hope and her organization. So we're going to meet after she gets back in town on the 20th. So that's
Miracles and Memories is a respite service
right.
that allows parents to get a break from intense situations.
Exactly, and they now are also including children. So that's why it works with looking at a partnership with Tomorrow's Hope.
Wonderful. Stephanie, what are you seeing this year?
It's been a good start. A lot of it was just kids getting back into the socialization of it. The last few weeks, there's been a few like, oops, kind of vapes at school, like just forgot I brought it. Who knows whether that was authentic or not, but I'm getting a lot of sort of follow-up discipline referrals from typically vapes, but we know we are seeing a little bit more marijuana on campus as the novelty of school is starting to wear off. So I'm pretty busy so far, but I've made a lot of good contacts with kiddos, whether it being just, there's a program at the high school called Gaggle where it flags particular trigger words. And so there's been a couple just great interactions, but a few funny misunderstandings of search terms that were part of like a psychology project, and just kind of getting the word out with those students that, you know, that is recorded, but also, hey, if you ever need support, this is who I am and what I'm doing. I'm excited for next week. So I start my project success training with all of our 9th grade English classes. So I'll be reaching 100% of our 9th graders at Monroe High School doing prevention ed, which mainly consists of healthy coping skills, what a healthy relationship looks like, coping skills. And then I do dive into substance abuse and what that looks like and kind of the modern harm reduction model. So I'm excited. So it's my first time doing it in person. Last year was a bit of a haggled mess trying to do it on Zoom, being a new employee. But I'm excited to get that contact out. I've been meeting a lot of 9th graders and they're just excited to be here. So I'm excited just to start building that relationship and following them through the school. And so that will start next week. So I'm looking forward to implementing that.
Wonderful. And Project Success is our only high school level prevention program. So we do have Signs of Suicide, which is a suicide prevention program. Counselors are trained in coping and support training, which serves more vulnerable youth. But as Monroe High School has no social emotional learning program and no other prevention program. So only 9th graders are served, and they're served well, but we're trying to expand them. Chief Jolly, any law enforcement priorities or trends or opportunities or challenges?
Well, thank you, Joe. Always a pleasure to be here. We definitely, business is good in the law enforcement realm, so I will say that. I appreciate Juliet's presentation. It was awesome. I learned some things and took some notes. Craig, I think he said it well for us in relation to what's going on. Our biggest concern is the safety of the youth that are in our schools, and we do everything we possibly can to support the staff in the school district to keep that environment safe and a place where kids can learn. You know, our school cop is focused on being a counselor and a resource to staff and students, as well as a coach and an advocate. And we appreciate the support here in Monroe. We think we have a valued presence in the school. Our last thing we ever want to do is a law enforcement action or any kind of criminal referral. So we appreciate the support for our program there. One thing that I think will be interesting coming out of this year, I think what you're going to see anecdotally is some reduced numbers for drug cases and drug enforcement. statistic wise from our police department as well as police departments across Washington because of the changes in drug laws. And I think that can be misleading. Does that mean that drug use is going down? I would not think so. I think we're going to see that the recent court ruling that occurred in the Blake decision, making it a misdemeanor and placing restrictions on law enforcement with no other safety net in place or in existence is going to create a lack of statistics, criminal referrals, arrests, or opportunities to get people drug treatment and hold people accountable in that manner. So I hope we don't take a big collective breath and think that the drug issue is going to be gone or isn't a threat to our youth, because the numbers aren't there. One thing we're seeing already is Narcan deployments, because you can now purchase Narcan over the counter. Those saves are often being done privately in private settings without any kind of reporting or any kind of follow-up or any kind of public safety involvement or health department involvement. So we're not going to as many Narcan saves when people have overdosed. So the numbers will be deceiving, I believe, for the next year or two. And that's going to be a challenge for groups like this, and certainly for you, Joe, when you're putting numbers and things together. But other than that, we just continue to be concerned about the overdoses that have occurred with the 2 16-year-olds in our community, and trying to find any ways we can to reach out to our youth, and we'll support any efforts of any of our partners here. Thank you.
One question from me for you, Chief. Any additional resolution around the constraints put on you by HB 1330?
I think you may be referring to 1310.
Oh, yeah,
There's
okay.
so many numbers out there, Joe, I get confused. There is no resolutions. There's certainly no plan by any of the political organizations that represent police or cities to actively try to do any major changes. There may be through the Chiefs Association and one of the police organizations some cleanup of some of the language, but I don't think there'll be major changes to draw back any of those reform measures, if you will, that have been put out there. So I'm not hopeful.
Okay. Director Bumpus, sorry to put you on the spot. Any updates from the school directors of Monroe? Must be occupied with school business. Aubrey, would you tell us a little bit about the ministries you're involved with? I'm fascinated by what you do.
Sure. So I am involved in a board that does justserve.org. So trying to get volunteering opportunities for people in the community out there. And so, you know, anything that you guys might have that has volunteering and connecting people in the community with helping others is something that I do. And then I'm also on the Relief Society, which is a women's group, a global women's group for our church. And, you know, we're just involved in the community and alleviating suffering. And right now we're collecting school supplies for refugees, as there's going to be some inundation of refugees coming into our community. I don't think any coming specifically into Monroe yet, but Everett, Tacoma, kind of down south. So that's kind of what we're doing right now. So yeah, and we also have an emotional resilience program that is run through our church that my husband and I piloted for 16 to 18-year-olds this last winter. And anyway, just my fingers are in kind of a few different pots, but yeah. But I love hearing, and I'm also a parent, so I really appreciate all the information from everybody here.
Thank you. Thank you. I think Director Bumpus is available. Director Bumpus, anything happening on school board or other issues that you can share with us? Okay, it's not quite available, but she's communicating with me. Hannah, what's happening in Sultan with your youth coalition, and what's happening with CPWI there?
Not a lot is happening with the youth coalition right now, just struggling to get members, waiting on to hear back from the school counselor of when I can go in and do like a presentation at her club. So hopefully after that I get some teens coming in, but right now it's just real slow. The CPWI, we formed our coalition here, and me and one of my coworkers are just started the training process, and that's like every Thursday or something like that. So yeah, we're just learning about it, seeing what it's all gonna involve and all that. I'm excited to move into a more education type role in the near future.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And some of it's counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Director Bumpus, what's happening on the school board?
Hey, Joe, you know, it's never boring on the school board. So just navigating through a lot of pieces. I was fortunate enough to be able to visit a lot of our campuses a couple of weeks ago, and actually got to hang out with Officer Robertson for a little bit. And so I'm just kind of still collecting, I think, information. I still have a few more of the schools to visit. I did get to visit the high school, and even though it is a little heavier than typical, I would say, in terms of that feeling, I am excited that there's such a strong team there. I met the assistant principals and the principal and kind of got to navigate the campus that way. So I'm excited about the work that's being done there and about the people we do have in place. And so, again, just visiting the rest of the campuses and then hoping to bring more of that information at our next school board meeting. And I am excited to also read the information. What did you say was the assessment, the needs assessment? I saw that link. And so I'll be reading that and hopefully summarizing a few of those pieces at our next school board meeting.
Great. And we know if board wants a special presentation, we can reach out to Deborah and Rachel from the city, and we can hear straight from the horse's mouth. So,
you know, I always love a good presentation, Joe.
yeah.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for all that you do. Very exciting. And yeah, I'm definitely looking for reach out for a workshop soon.
Kathy Bernhardt, what are we seeing on the McKinney-Vento and Foster front?
Well, Foster's pretty consistent. I'll have more accurate numbers at the end of this month when we run our comparison data with the state. But McKinney, I am 8 students away from where we ended last year, and last year we doubled. So we see a large trend moving upwards for our McKinney students. I'm very grateful to this community, our student support advocates who are partnering with me to wrap around these families, because this isn't something that I can do by myself. It really does take each one of us and our commitment to trying to shore up and stabilize these families as they are struggling. So, yeah, thank you.
Kathy Jackson, what are you seeing?
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback what Catherine said, what she's seen in I do a food bank program with partnership with Sky Valley Food Bank and Multnomah Food Bank. And at Frank Wagner, last year we were about 80 bags. We're already at 150. So it's double the need of, and those are families that, target families that aren't already being serviced by the food bank. So this is just supplemental food. So families that are just in that kind of, trying to make ends meet, but maybe not qualify, they need help too. So the need is big. And then, sorry, I'm in a room where I haven't moved around for a while. And then also just behaviors. A lot of mostly I'm in elementary schools, but the kids haven't been in school for a year and a half, some of them. And they're just a lot of, I think last spring they were excited to be back and the classes are smaller, So all we saw was just really well-behaved, kids excited to be back. And now the kids, a lot of that is coming out and they haven't had a lot of screen time. So yeah, our school staffs are maxed. So just be aware of that. There's a lot of needs out there. Thank you.
And Kathy, sorry, does the eviction moratorium end in October, or where are we at with that?
So it is expected to end here again at the end of October, as long as it doesn't get extended again. But for some of our families, if they're in the city Seattle boundaries, and because of McKinney, that can easily happen. Those moratoriums aren't going to happen, I believe, until January. So it just depends on where you are at in living and what your county has decided. For us right now, end of October, but wait and see.
So things could get worse.
I am fully expecting things to get worse when that moratorium lifts, as families find their ways back to employment and try to gain housing if they are not currently employed and currently have not, if they get out is ousted. But what we are finding is a lot of our families are not taking advantage of that rental assistance. Even though we are trying to help them and walk them through the applications, they still are not doing it, and really need to get that encouragement going to do it.
That's, one thing we know about serving vulnerable families is they tend to be very aware of what's available and very ineffective at accessing available resources. This is why Kathy's role and the SSAs and Mary Beth, why their roles are so critical, because it's not about awareness, it's about access.
Right.
Mary Beth, what's happening in your neck of the woods?
Well, I can say that I am very appreciative of the school district right now. Monroe has been wonderful at getting our kids back in school and working. And like everybody else, I'm seeing a lot of behavior, a lot of mental health, a lot of dysregulation. I really enjoy working with the children, but right now I'm more of a crisis responder. I think that my role's kind of turned into that. But the Monroe School District, all the schools have been wonderful when I've been reaching out with these kids and just trying to help navigate they've been home for this long time. And so it's been crazy. It has been very busy. I'm tired. So I can't imagine these school teachers. I only have one at a time that I work with because I do home visits and I, work with one child at a time, but I couldn't imagine being a school teacher right now and then all of a sudden having 25 of them in your classroom and you're like, oh my gosh, it's overwhelming. But just trying to make sure that everybody is taken care of and they're reaching out for resources. And like Kathy said, same thing, families are not taking advantage of the rental assistance. So it's just getting those resources into our families. Did I freeze?
Joe, you're muted.
Sorry, of course I am. Jessica, what's happening at Take the Next Step? I'm hearing we're getting closer to Kids Club launching, but you might be out of CARES Act funding. What's going on?
Kids Club are not going to open until next year.
Okay.
We prefer to wait for COVID because the majority of our volunteers are older, so we want to wait. The other stuff we're doing is we continue helping the families in need. I did a lot of help and rent with Voluntarios de America. I have a lot of families to cover their rent. For some of them, the hire was 7 months. So that was a lot of help. It was an amazing job that was done, connect a lot of families. They're still getting help now, still with utilities. So a lot of our families who aren't there, they are getting the help. I'm doing a lot of visits at the houses, making sure the children are okay. A lot of visits at our place. We are open only 3 days a week with by appointment. We're still doing the outreach to bring food to the homeless. They like that, then they're coming to us, we're going to them. We're getting ready now for winter time. And yeah, we continue doing the help, trying to find the best help we can do for them at this time, families.
Thank you. Thank you. And take the next step is right now going through training to become a trauma-informed organization. That's why Jessica and I were hanging out all day. I was leading the training there. But pretty exciting things. Pastor Michael or Mary Myers, any updates from your neck of the woods, or have any themes emerged here that you've noticed that we might respond to?
Well, I would just report that unfortunately the pallet housing that we had hoped to get up in September for McKinney-Vento families, it's waiting on the ARPA funding, so that's kind of put off until January. But I was disappointed about that, but that's where we're at, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. Brittany.
I just have a number. Never to not have an opportunity to talk and be silent, Joe. Got to say something.
Okay.
I just have some thoughts. One is that what I hear recurrent as a theme is the mental health concerns, both for our students and for our families, for the adults who are in service provider roles, education. Is there some role that the coalition could potentially assume? And I don't know what that looks like. I know that there's a lot of targeted interventions occurring. That's very apparent. But in terms of universal strategies, is there something else that we could do to address that need? And then also in regard to the concern about the fentanyl pills, that has been hovering over me. And I want to make sure that we do respond to law enforcement, both our SRO and our police chiefs offer to extend a hand and provide input or assistance in terms of some intervention in that regard. I think we have consistently understood that our role was to be anticipatory and not wait until we have a tragedy to respond to. And I have a big concern about the role of the internet now, because so much of kids' access is in a venue that we aren't necessarily going to see or even be aware of. And I don't know that I'm raising the question, Joe, to you educators in the group. What are we doing to address the hazards of the internet? I know that when I was in the district, Monroe Police came in and did personal safety. And I believe that Officer, I want to say Spencer Robinson, did trainings with parents on internet safety. But I think those efforts at the time that they were intensive were more targeted on inappropriate outreach to youth of a sexual nature. And I don't know what is being done in terms of addressing the issue of drug access over the internet. So I'm pretty good at raising questions without having answers. And I'm not currently in a role of, as all of you are, in terms of direct service provision, but I do think that we need to look at prioritizing some of the issues that have been brought up in our go around this afternoon and look at ways that we can not only prioritize, but provide assistance
Yeah. Thank you.
or
Mayor,
be a catalyst. Maybe that's a better word.
you're my reliable synthesizer, so I really appreciate this. You
Thank you, Joe.
emphasize everything that's happening around us. Brittany, what's happening in your neck of the woods as you take on your new role at the health district?
Well, hello, once again. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Is it an echo?
No.
Okay. Well, I'm just transitioning into my new role. I'm currently in, I believe it's week 2 of the new role. So currently here I am, just getting acquainted with information pertaining to our schools and our environment, our area in regards to, marijuana and tobacco youth prevention. So as of right now, I have a few summits I've attended to just get more information about ways we can empower the youth. As well, I have another training workshop I have to do this upcoming week in regards of youth empowerment for marijuana prevention and tobacco. Other than that's all the updates that I have so far. I don't know if Juliet may have any. I can't see her on my other screen or not, but if you have any, Juliet, feel free. You can just step in.
I don't think I have anything else big to add in that world, at least. It was exciting to get to present about a marijuana topic one more time today, but I think once Brittany's up and running, she'll be your go-to person for that. And otherwise, I guess the benefit of me getting to step back from that work is that I'll get to completely focus on the opioid grant that I coordinate, which will be exciting. We are just starting year 2 of 3 years of that. So we're a little behind with all of COVID and those impacts. So we've got some catch up to play in the next 2 years, and it'll be really great to just more fully dedicate my time to that project.
I feel like we are missing a wise send-off. Tom McIntyre always closes with amazing and affirming words of wisdom. I'm no Tom McIntyre. So what I will say is I appreciate each of you. You are the catalyst of positive change for kids in Monroe. We've been together for 8 years, and the data consistently supports what we're doing. We have new data coming that might be alarming, and as Chief Jolly pointed out, may lead us down to a false sense of security. And so we'll be vigilant. We'll work together, and we'll keep changing things for kids. So until next time, guys, thank you so much for what you do.
Well,
Yes.